Chosen one. This is not just another turning point. This is the turn. The one your spirit has been trembling for without knowing why. You didn't scroll here by accident. You didn't arrive here by logic. You were summoned, pulled into alignment by a force that doesn't shout, but whispers in sacred code, the same code your soul has always known. And if something deep in your being just sat up and listened, you're in the right place. Because this message, it's not for the crowd. It's for the called. You've felt it lately, haven't you? That strange heat in your chest, that restlessness behind your eyes, that unspoken knowing that something is about to shift and you're at the center of it. It's not anxiety. It's not confusion. It's your activation beginning. This isn't about motivation. It's not about good vibes. This is about the final move that changes everything. And if you're still watching, it's because the move has already started in you. You feel it in the silence, how it's not empty anymore, but pregnant with meaning. You feel it in the delay, how your waiting season wasn't punishment, but preparation. You feel it in the warfare, how every attack against you had less to do with what you did and more to do with who you are becoming. The pressure? That was prophecy, wearing a disguise. The resistance? That was confirmation, dressed as chaos. The loneliness? That was heaven clearing the room for your download. You've been hidden on purpose. You've been held back on purpose. But now the purpose is being revealed. This is the moment where timelines tighten, where the veil thins, where the whispers get loud enough to crack through the noise. So hear this. The next move you make won't just shift your life, it will shift realities. This is your moment of divine ignition. And before we go further, if your spirit is vibrating right now, I need you to prove you're locked in. Comment 777 right now if you feel it. Not because you understand it, but because you recognize it. That's how alignment speaks. Not in words, but in remembrance. If you're still here, you're already activating. Are you ready to see why the attacks came? Then let's go deeper. Chosen one, you've been asking questions in silence. Why the pressure? Why the betrayal? Why the nights where sleep felt like a myth and peace seemed like a stranger? Here's the truth they didn't want you to realize. You were never being punished. You were being positioned. There's a cost to being chosen. Before you ever rise publicly, you get refined privately. Before the platform comes the pit. Before the crown comes the crushing. And the reason it's been so hard? Because hell recognized your anointing before you did. They smiled in your face but flinched at your presence. Because even when you didn't speak, your energy spoke for you. Even when you tried to play it safe, your frequency kept rising. They couldn't understand it, so they tried to contain it. Let me say this clearly. They didn't reject you because you were weak. They rejected you because they saw strength in you that hadn't even fully awakened yet. They saw a mirror that exposed their masks. And instead of elevating with you, they tried to pull you back into patterns you were born to break. But what they didn't understand is that every rejection was really a redirection. Every delay was divine design. Every betrayal was a setup for your unveiling. You weren't just attacked randomly, you were targeted because you carry something dangerous. Not dangerous in a destructive way. Dangerous to the systems that survive off silence, smallness, and spiritual amnesia. That's why the spiritual warfare didn't come after your failure, it came after your stirring. The moment you started waking up to who you were, it felt like all hell broke loose. Because it did. Heaven shook you, and hell noticed. And when the chosen wake up, the matrix panics. So they sent distractions, in the form of relationships. They sent attacks, dressed as opportunities. They sent confusion camouflaged as logic. But you kept standing. Even bleeding, you kept walking. Even doubting, you kept believing. Even when no one clapped, you showed up. That's not weakness. That's dangerous strength. The truth is this. The reason your path has been heavier than most is because what you're carrying is bigger than most. You weren't just meant to survive. You were meant to disrupt, to awaken, to shift atmospheres just by existing in your truth. The universe doesn't waste weight. Every ounce of suffering was sacred strategy. You weren't being broken, you were being built, brick by brick, tear by tear, battle by battle. And now the enemy's panic is louder than your past pain. Because what they tried to silence is starting to roar. What they tried to bury is beginning to breathe. What they feared would rise is now uncontainable. So the next time you look in the mirror and wonder why you've been under attack, remember, you're not under attack because you're behind. You're under attack because you're about to break through. And every force that once fed off your silence is about to be choked by your truth. This is not the time to retreat. This is the time to remember who you are and why the enemy fought you so hard in the first place. You are not just another soul wandering through life. You are a divine disruption in motion. And the shift has already begun. Let's talk about what's been buried inside you, because now it's time to resurrect it. Chosen one, they mistook your stillness for weakness. They assumed your silence meant surrender. But still, waters don't reflect failure, they hide force. And inside you, that stillness was the birthplace of a storm. Let's make this clear. You were never powerless. You were just unplugged, disconnected, not from your worth, but from your awareness of it. And now, the connection is re-establishing. The voltage is returning. That fire that once flickered is turning into a wild, holy blaze. You were never meant to fit in, never meant to water yourself down just to be tolerated, never meant to explain your frequency to people still tuned into noise. Because what you carry, it's not just potential, it's proof. Proof that even without applause, you've grown. Even without permission, you've expanded. Even without a title, your presence shifts the room. But here's the truth that will either activate you or offend you. You've been playing small on purpose. Not because you didn't feel the power, but because the world trained you to fear it. They told you to tone it down, to be nice, to be agreeable, to wait your turn. But the moment you agreed to shrink, your spirit started to rebel. The restlessness, that wasn't confusion. It was your higher self protesting captivity, because your calling has never been quiet. It's just been ignored. And the longer you delay, the louder it gets. In your gut, in your dreams, in the way the world around you starts to reject what no longer fits. Let's go deeper. You've spent too much time second-guessing yourself, haven't you? Apologizing for your intuition, doubting your instincts, convincing yourself you need one more degree, one more sign, one more approval slip from people who couldn't carry what you've survived for 1 week. But here's the plot twist. You don't need to be more. You need to remember more. Remember who you were before fear tried to disciple you, before culture tried to conform you, before systems tried to label you as too much, too intense, too deep, too aware. But you're not too much. You're too awake. And an awake soul terrifies anything built on control. That's why your sensitivity isn't a weakness. It's a weapon. That's why your empathy isn't a flaw. It's a frequency. That's why your discernment makes people uncomfortable, because it sees what others try to hide. This is not paranoia. This is not self-importance. This is spiritual sight, and it's part of your design. And now the most dangerous part of your journey begins. Becoming unapologetically powerful. Let them call it arrogance. Let them mislabel it. Let them whisper. They did it to every chosen one before you. But what they called too confident is really finally awake. What they label as too intense is really refusing to die in spiritual denial. Chosen one, you weren't built for lukewarm lives. You weren't made to repeat cycles and call it normal. You were forged for impact, created to confront, shaped to shift dimensions, not just blend into them. And the cost of ignoring that truth is spiritual suffocation. It's waking up every day knowing something ancient is knocking inside you and choosing not to answer. But no more. Because this final move that's stirring inside you, it requires the real you. Not the masked version. Not the edited self. Not the agreeable persona. It needs the one you hid to survive. That version, the one who knows they're powerful even when they're quiet, that's the version who changes everything. So breathe in this truth. Your power was never missing. It was just waiting to be remembered. And now that it's been remembered, it's about to be released. Let's talk about that release. Let's talk about the shift that turns potential into prophecy. Chosen one. You've been living in between dimensions. Not quite asleep, but not fully activated either. Like a lion trained to purr in a world that forgot you were built to roar. But now the shift is unavoidable, because what's been dormant is demanding release. And what used to be manageable about you is about to become uncontainable. Here's the real reason you've been restless. You've outgrown the identity the world gave you. You've outgrown the spiritual cage, the emotional ceilings, the mental frameworks that kept you digestible. And the tension you feel? That's your true self, pressing against the shell of your conditioning. They told you to be humble, and you made yourself invisible. They told you to be kind, and you silenced your intuition. They told you to be reasonable, and you clipped your wings to fit their logic. But now your wings are twitching. Your soul is itching. And something inside you is whispering, you were never meant to crawl. It's not burnout. It's spiritual compression. It's what happens when high voltage is trapped inside old wiring, when divine fire tries to live in a space built for flickers. And if that metaphor burns a hole in your chest, it's because your spirit recognizes the truth. You were born with nuclear energy in your soul, not to warm rooms, but to level dimensions that no longer serve the light. You're not just waking up. You're returning to the version of you that never bowed to fear, the one that knew before words, before wounds, before the world tried to tame your fire. And the irony? The moment you stop trying to be understood is the moment you become undeniable. Let them misunderstand you. Let them feel discomfort in your presence. They should, because when the chosen one awakens, everything false begins to crumble. Systems shake. Masks fall. Patterns collapse. This is not arrogance. This is alignment. And alignment always feels like disruption to those still married to illusion. You want to know why they act strange around you now? Why they avoid your eyes? Why they stumble over their words? Why your presence suddenly feels like a mirror they never asked for? Because something in you is activated. And what's activated in you is agitating what's dormant in them. You don't have to prove your worth. You don't have to convince anyone of your purpose. Your energy is doing the talking now. You've become the glitch in their programming, the rupture in their comfort, the echo in their silence that refuses to die. Chosen one, you've graduated from surviving to shifting, from enduring to embodying, from questioning your path to becoming the path. This is your awakening shift, not a glow-up, not a brand refresh, a soul-level re-emergence of the divine intelligence you were always coded with. You are not what happened to you. You are what was revealed through what happened to you. And now, your very existence becomes a threat, not because you're aggressive, but because you're aligned. And alignment is louder than rage, stronger than revenge, more permanent than applause. So hear this, and hear it well. You are not just remembering your power. You are rewriting the narrative that said you were ever without it. This shift is not coming. It's here. And it's you. From this moment forward, stop shrinking. Stop apologizing. Stop waiting. Become what you were afraid of. Because that's what they've always feared, your full self unleashed. Now, let's talk about how to channel this. How to move from awakening to activation. Chosen one. Power without direction is just noise. And you weren't chosen to echo. You were chosen to shift. Now that you've remembered your power, let's talk about how to activate it. Because awareness without action is spiritual starvation. You don't need more knowledge. You need alignment. Let's start with the hardest truth. You can't activate divine power while still clinging to dead things. You can't soar while gripping what's crumbling. You can't ascend while dragging the weight of who you used to be. That fear, that overthinking, that people-pleasing, they've all expired. They no longer serve where you're going. This next move requires you to let go. Let go of the image you curated to survive. Let go of the identity you built on fear. Let go of the comfort zone that became a coffin for your calling. Because power doesn't flow where there's contamination. And fear contaminates faith. Pride contaminates clarity. Control contaminates destiny. Chosen one. This is where the activation begins. You surrender, not to defeat, but to divine direction. You stop gripping the wheel. You stop forcing what was never meant to fit. You stop begging for closure from people who were only sent to wake you up. Listen, trying harder isn't the same as flowing deeper. Hustling harder won't unlock the door. But aligning your spirit with divine timing, that's the shortcut to supernatural flow. Plug into the source, and everything starts responding to you. Synchronicities align. Doors open without knocking. The chaos starts to part like mist around a mountain. Because when you move with divine instruction, you don't chase. You attract. You don't explain. You embody. You don't fear. You flow. This is not about grinding yourself into dust. It's about walking with such alignment that even your stillness causes tremors in the atmosphere. Let this truth drop into your bones. Willpower might get you started, but alignment is what keeps you soaring. And how do you know you're aligned? You feel it. In your body. In your relationships. In how peace stops being circumstantial and starts being your default. So here's the activation checklist. Drop the illusion of control. Release the timelines you made in panic. Unsubscribe from the narratives that said you had to earn your worth. Trust that what's rising in you is divinely engineered, not emotionally imagined. And then you act. Not perfectly, but prophetically. That idea you keep burying, move on it. That voice you keep silencing, speak with it. That door you've been afraid to walk through, kick it open. Not because everything makes sense, but because your spirit said, go. Faith doesn't wait for clarity. It creates it. So here's the final activation question. What have you been delaying that's already been confirmed in your spirit? Chosen one. This is the move that changes everything. Not when you think about it, not when you pray on it for 6 more months, but when you act on it in faith. Your future isn't waiting for another sign. It's waiting for your movement. Now let's step into the final charge. The divine commission that seals what's been awakened. Chosen one. It's time. Not tomorrow. Not when you feel braver. Not when the world finally applauds. Now, the final move is not external. It's internal ignition. A soul-level decision to never again betray the power you've been entrusted with. You are not here to wait for green lights from people who can't comprehend your assignment. You are here to become the light, the sign, the spark, the disruption. You are the evidence of divine intelligence made manifest. You are the echo of a prophecy that's been whispered across generations. You are the living interruption to generational chains, to societal lies, to every label that was meant to keep you tame. They tried to mute you so you'd forget how loud your silence truly is. They tried to box you in, but your presence made the box disintegrate. Because you were coded for liberation, for shaking timelines, for awakening dormant destinies just by walking in yours. Let them call it dramatic. Let them mock what they don't understand. That's not your concern. Your concern is obedience. To the pull, to the presence, to the power that's been stalking you since birth, just waiting for your agreement. So if your hands are shaking, good. That means you're close. If your chest is tight, good. That means your spirit is cracking the old shell open. This message didn't find you randomly. It was written in you. And right now, heaven's eyes are watching not what you say, but what you do next. So rise, step, speak, move. Not because you have it all figured out, but because your activation can't wait any longer. And if you know this message was for you, comment 777 below. That's not just a number. That's your signature in the spirit realm. That's your agreement with this word. Like this video. Subscribe to the channel. And remember, you didn't just hear this message. You became it. The final move has begun. And you are the earthquake.